We want to take a look back at some of the news that the headlines from this week to discuss them with our panel of reporters from the Washington Stand. With me now for that conversation, managing editor for broadcast, Casey Harper, and editorial director and senior writer, Suzanne Bowdey. Casey, Suzanne, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, let's start first with the news that just broke a few hours ago. There was a trilateral meeting today that President Trump had with the leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Suzanne, what's the significance of this?
Well, I think the world has largely been focused on the peace negotiations in Israel and Russia, Ukraine, those two wars that have consumed a lot of the world's attention. But honestly, what happened today is one of the most significant peace deals, I think, of this entire generation. These are two countries that have been engaged in a 30-year war that's cost over 6 million lives. Those are Holocaust-like numbers. And the fact that President Trump was able to bring together these two countries and sit down and agree to disarm, agree to a ceasefire, agree to return some of these millions of displaced people back to their homelands, and maybe even do some economic partnership between the two nations is hugely significant and hopefully will ripple throughout Africa. These are actually atrocities that compare a lot with what we're seeing in Nigeria and Sudan over these past few years, especially as the civil war has grown and exploded in the Congo. I mean, we're talking about looting, beheadings, execution, arson, rape, 10,000 rapes in a 2-month span against girls as young as 10. These atrocities have been savage, they've been brutal, and the fact that Trump brought these two nations to the table is a credit to him and hopefully will really spread throughout the continent of Africa, which is descending into chaos as we speak.
He's already stepped in earlier declaring Nigeria as a country of particular concern because of what was happening there as it pertained to the killing of Christians. The fighting still continues between these two countries. Is there an expectation that that's going to take some time to stop, or what do we see unfolding here?
I think so. Just last month, we saw a brutal attack in a hospital maternity ward that actually killed mothers and their newborns, pregnant women, nurses, doctors. This is going to take vigilance on the part not only of these two countries who've been at war for so long, but also the international community. If you look across Africa right now, the continent has about a 4,000-mile, what they're calling corridor of conflict. 16 of the 54 states in Africa are embroiled in some sort of war right now. Imagine if 16 of the United States were involved in a war. So we're really talking about a region that needs the world's attention, needs someone like Donald Trump to come in and actually broker peace talks so that innocent lives are saved.
Well, I think, we often kind of project our situation onto those that we're thinking about it. We're thinking about the United States, where there is, we question this sometimes, but there's law and order. And there's more of an infrastructure and stability. You go to some of these countries, which I've been to, and it's a free-for-all. I mean, it's just totally chaotic. And the central government just doesn't have a lot of control. And Nigeria is something in that category where the Nigerian government does not have the ability at present to stop, or they could do more than they're doing. But you've got Boko Haram is the one that's killing a lot of the Christians there in Nigeria, and they're better equipped than the government. So these countries need someone to come along and cheer them on to do the right thing. And I think President Trump, in part, is doing that. So again, he's thinking outside the box.
I will say that one thing that Trump should be doing that he hasn't done, and this is in the Senate's court right now, is we don't have a replacement for Sam Brownback. We don't have an ambassador at large for international religious freedom. That nomination has stalled in the Senate. It's a very important position that I think we really need to pressure the Senate to move forward so that someone can go to these countries and can put pressure on these leaders to act.
Yeah, Mark Walker has been nominated by the administration and has yet to have his hearing. There is more that can be done diplomatically. I also think that when you go to places like Nigeria and other places, Sudan, which is another just horrible situation there, that Christians, churches, communities could be aided by the State Department with training and equipment to protect themselves against some of these attacks. It was actually what I used to do when I was a contractor with the State Department. All right, I want to move on. Casey, I want to talk about one of the items we didn't get to cover in depth this week. And that was a decision by the U.S. Appeals Court regarding the freedom of pro-life groups to talk about abortion pill reversal. Now, this is quite significant because as we now have over 70% of abortions, or thereabouts, being performed through abortion pills, the abortion reversal pill has become a very significant tool for pro-life ministries. Give us the latest on it. Unpack what that court did.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. In the aftermath of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the Democratic Party and the far left really has gone into overdrive on how to make abortion even more prevalent than ever, despite the overturning of Roe, which is something a lot of Christians prayed in for many, many years and celebrated when it happened. But as you pointed out, they just shifted strategy. Now it's all in on the abortion pill, and we have not seen some drop off in abortions because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so part of what they're doing is they're pushing the abortion pill. And another strategy is they're trying to shut down anyone who speaks out against the abortion pill. So in this case of in New York, this case that was decided at the federal appellate level, there was these pro-life centers that are telling women a simple message that if you take the abortion pill and to end your pregnancy and then you change your mind, there's a window of time where you can take progesterone and actually undo the abortion pill and save the life of your baby. And we know testimonies of many women who have done that, who had the child, and are so grateful that they made that decision. So what happened was Letitia James, who's kind of infamous now, New York Attorney General, she ran on going after President Trump and trying to prosecute him and followed through with that. Very partisan Attorney General, very liberal, has actually gone after these pro-life groups and sued them and said, you cannot tell women that if they take this progesterone, that it could save their baby. Yeah. If they want to save their baby, you can't tell them that message. This case, the court ruled, hey, you can't tell these pro-life groups what they can and can't tell women.
But, Suzanne, this is nothing new in terms of how the left is trying to silence these care pregnancy centers. Before, I mean, we've seen this, and they've gone to the Supreme Court before. We had California making, and in other states, blue states, making them post signs in their windows before. I mean, this is, the left can't compete, so they have to silence the voice of truth.
Well, what's also ironic is that they call themselves pro-choice, but they don't want to inform women of choices like this, that they can undo an abortion that they regret already. The fact that 70% of children can be saved by an abortion pill reversal is something that every woman should know as she goes in to have one of these procedures.
Right, right. It is. They do not want the facts out there. And what's ironic is that when they were making many of these care pregnancy centers post signs in their windows saying we are not a full-service medical clinic, they say, well, we just want people to know the truth. No, they don't. They only want them to know what they are selling, and that is death and abortions. We got about 6 minutes left, Suzanne. I want to talk a little bit about corporate wokeness. It's still out there. I know a lot of it has been exposed, and many corporations have moved away from it, but there's still some out there.
There is, and it's ironic because today we just got the news that Jaguar had fired its woke CEO, who completely rebranded the company in a direction that was wildly out of step with the American people. He was just fired. Earlier today, AT&T said, we're dropping DEI, we're moving away from it, and yet there's still some companies, and companies that would surprise people like Chick-fil-A, who are still embracing some of these horribly woke, controversial, unpopular policies. Thanks to a listener named Debbie, we appreciate the tip. She emailed us a post earlier today that a Chick-fil-A in Utah was celebrating the same-sex marriage of two guys on their official account, on their Facebook account, which was astonishing, but not so astonishing when you consider Chick-fil-A's sort of legacy over the last few years, which is a really checkered past of backing away from Christian organizations like the Salvation Army, the Fellowship of Christian Christian athletes, and then funneling that money instead to really controversial places like the SPLC, who we are no fan of, to drag queen story hours. Now, that was a few years ago, but as recently as 2023, they went ahead and hired a DEI vice president in their corporate hierarchy, which to me is a much bigger problem because we've seen all of these other companies back away. And yet in the last 2 years, a Christian organization who should have never hired a DEI VP in the first place, who shouldn't be embracing those values, has refused to reassign that person and has instead allowed a culture where we see what's being posted in Utah to flourish in these local stores. It's very concerning to me. I really have a beef or chicken or whatever you want to call it with the fact that they have not gradually moved away from these things as other companies have.
Well, and what's, I mean, when you have companies like Target and others that have actually, well, you mentioned AT&T, Jaguar, they've all kind of backed away. But here you have a business that is still privately held, and it identifies as Christian in particular.
Right, and they're profiting off of the fact that they identify as Christian and then turn around and betray those values. Now, I do realize this was a local franchise. I realize some people really love their local operators. They know them. They're good Christian people who love the Lord. And what really needs to happen is these good people need to pressure headquarters to move away from these policies and social extremism that no one in America really supports anymore.
Well, the local stores cannot do what the headquarters does not allow. I mean, can you imagine a Chick-fil-A, a local operator opening on Sunday? I mean, they would say, no, you can't. We're closed on Sunday. Well, why are they celebrating same-sex marriage? I mean,
right. And it's wild. And unfortunately, having that vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion gives these locations cover to do things like this and to step outside the boundaries of the beliefs and the ethics that the country has said it promotes. So really, they need to take a deep look at what they're doing in their executive offices and turn away from these things that are turning off the American people, especially as a Christian organization. It does not serve the Kathy legacy well.
I throw this out to both of you. It's a bit stunning to me when you see all of these other corporations that have no stated faith whatsoever. In fact, they're totally secular. They've been backing away from this, I guess, because they can see the winds of change that came in with the Trump administration. Why would Chick-fil-A be moving the other direction?
I think, yeah, I'll jump in here, Tony. I think for whatever reason, Christian leaders, they want to be nice. They want to be nice guys. They want to be liked. They want to be seen as loving and gentle. And I think this idea, you probably know this better than me, but this idea that Christians should be loving and kind has been twisted into this idea that Christians can never take an unpopular stand. And we see that all the time. And so I think it's, maybe it's fortuitous that you mentioned Hebrews 11 today, because we see that all these people in Hebrews 11, they came to a point where, like Noah in Hebrews 11, everyone around him said, what you're doing is crazy, but he took a stand and he made it in the hall of faith. And it comes a time with these Christian companies, they have to say, this is what we believe, if you like it or not. And I think people actually reward that. And now consumers are punishing the companies that are staying woke.
Yeah. So eat more beef, right?
The cows are right off.
I mean, I think we have to stand for something. The Word of God stands for something, and we need to stand on that Word. Casey, Suzanne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.